Hello and welcome to the special podcast for The Endless Maze. My name is Nat Clarkson and today I'm joined by the author 5D Nick to chat about his debut book and how it came about. Okay Nick, please give us an introduction to who you are and your background.
Wow, okay. That's quite a broad question, I suppose. You've hit me straight away with the big guns. No, I'm joking. So I'm Nick 5D, people know me as, and my author name. What is my background? I come from the countryside. I come from Hampshire. I guess a bit like in my imagination, the Tolkien's The Shires, you know, like thinking as we're talking literariness at this point, I always thought of that as, Hampshire and all the places called Shire on the end. But I mean, I come from it, I think more than most people is in its countryside with fields and cows and things. We are simultaneously close to Southampton and stuff. Yeah, what else? Quite a well-to-do family, you might say. Was sent off to boarding school at a young age, but yeah, I mean, thinking about that, I learned a lot of English. And the funny thing is for years and years, like, I was a sciencey. I think that's not the funny thing. I wrote a sci-fi book. I was a sciencey, physicsy, mathsy nerd. But I was always enjoying a bit of English. I wasn't. Well, to be fair, I didn't think I was enjoying it at school, but I was learning it. They were drumming it into my brain somewhere. Because I do enjoy a bit of writing, as you might know if you are looking at this after seeing the book, or you might find out if you check it out after hearing this.
So my first question is, this is your debut book. What inspired it?
It's a combination of things. I'm neurodiverse, and one thing I did used to have in my head was at this point, I'm going to say slight spoilers alert. I'm not going to tell you the whole story of the book. It won't, you don't need to stop listening if you're like, I really want to hear it and not enjoy it still. But I always had this really exciting thing in my head about sort of weird paranoia about and I still on some level very slightly do. And in fact, it's even been confirmed by scientists in some way, confirmed as a possibility, simulation theory. Could we be living in a computer? Could a computer ever do that even? This is partial inspiration for the book. Also, I always wanted to make films, and the first one I came up with, it was all very metaphysical. It was like, I was like, I'm gonna make a film. I actually sat down with my friend Dr. No One, shouts to him, and one day we were like, we're gonna make a film, but we better write down stuff. So we started writing things out, and there were bits about it was just about this mad battle for reality between good and evil, which seems to be obviously everything, but it's not quite as obvious, is it, as it classically goodies and baddies. But it was sort of meant to be, in my mind, it was, and I'm not religious, but it was sort of meant to be a God in inverted commas type, and then there was like a devil thing. It's quite, in some ways it's almost classic, except when I've written it into the book, all the stuff that happens, it's definitely not as classically archetypal as you might imagine from what I'm talking about. I've lost track. Oh, yeah, right. So we were writing a film. The original plan was that a woman was. This is not the book, so don't be like, oh, he's completely spoiled it. I was going to make a film, and it was going to be about a woman who was living her daily life at work, but then having these really intense dreams of really trippy sort of hallucinogenic things, like she was in some testing facility, like a lab rat, and then eventually, to cut a long story short, she was going to realize that her life in daytime work was the dream. She was actually in this big giant lab rat deal. It's just, could we be in a computer? I mean, in what happens in the book, I'm definitely not going to spoil it by saying there is a giant psycho computer. And it's like, blah. Yeah, I mean, I remember going to raves. I used to be really into psytrance at one point. Not so much anymore. Let's not get into that specifics. But there was always a track that went on and on about it was the one I heard most when I turned up at the raves, which would go about again, it's the same sort of thing. What if you're just a brain in a tank somewhere, tricked all your life into believing of the events of this world by some insane computer? Anyway, in my story, it's not just that. There's all sorts of things that happen. I tried to set it across all the time and space, but it's about it's about, what is it about? It's about what is real. I would say that's what it could be about. It's very much, it's also about hyperspace and death in a more sort of I don't want to say too much.
Okay, well, you've kind of answered my next question, because my first question was what inspired the book, but you've gone on to then sort of elaborate a bit more about what the book's about. So my second question was, what is the story, the main story of the book, and what can people expect, but without giving away any key storylines?
It's about all sorts of things. It's about the characters. I mean, part of it is you wanna, I hope, if you're listening, know what happens to the people in the book.
I suppose what I'm trying to get at is when is the book? Is the book set in now, or is it set in the future? And is there a timeline that we can follow within the book? And what is the actual default sort of problem of the book?
Okay, well, one of my favourite sort of movie directors at the moment is, of course, one of them, I would say, is Christopher Nolan, who loves to play with time. Oh, it's all over the place, going backwards, forwards, twisting around. Or he loves weirdness about time. But I was like, oh God, John, I don't want to overcomplicate my book. I thought to myself, it's the first one I've written. At the time, I wasn't planning to write two, but I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start at the beginning and I'm going to go through it chronologically as stuff happens, and finish at the end. How bloody weird. Do you know what I mean? But to cut a long story short, it starts at the Big Bang. It comes up to like 2050-ish, doesn't it? And then it sort of goes through a bit of that. Then it fast forwards into maybe a few more 100 years, and then even further. And then it ends in a timeless place, so to speak. Even the deep time, could be. Deep time is not a timeless place. This is complex cosmological things, which there's a lot of in the book. In fact, so yeah, if you're scratching your head but interested, don't worry. We've got the book. You should like it. Yeah?
That's brilliant. So, with that in mind, do you feel that the things you cover in the book will be a likely outcome of the future? So do you feel like where the technology you talk about and the sort of, I guess, the futuristic social dilemmas that occur in the book, do you feel that is a vision of what you see the future to be like?
This is 100% down to how we treat the coming technological singularity. It is possible what happens in the book. It's possible with a certain detonation procedure of the technological singularity. It could well happen. Hopefully, we would do it better, is the hope. If you wonder what I'm talking about, if you don't know, technological singularity is the date at which we invent a general artificial intelligence that is better and cleverer than us, at which point it becomes the leading character in the evolution of life, in inverted commas, on this planet. So the major question is, will it end up like in the book? Well, like I said, when I said destination procedure, of course, how we teach this AI when it inevitably is built to act, or how we give it, like, how we get it. This whole thing by Nick Bostrom on this, actually, on the TED Talks. Fascinating thing. And it's actually really important that people are thinking about this, because if we just invent the thing, like, we'll just make a super clever thing, it will I have some weird optimism. It could be benevolent and help us anyway. A lot of people are like, nah mate, it's gonna go full Terminator. And even though I'm a nice optimistic person in real life, I feel it could well go full Terminator, given if we don't can help it to know what to do to be nice in inverted commas. I mean, sometimes it will hopefully it might have to not be nice. What if there's wars between it and another country? What if there's a war between it and another one of itself? Hopefully none of this will happen. Hopefully, but I am a chirpy optimist, but I'm also quite realistic, and the human species is not. We're not the best at not fighting each other with new technology. As for it specifically going exactly as it is in the book, I'd say that's fairly unlikely, only because there's way more other possible outcomes, if you see what I mean. But as for, is it possible that what happens in the book happens? Yeah, 100%. Almost, I mean, I hesitate to say anything's possible, because that's another hippie thing that I like to believe in, but I do also believe in physics, so...
Yeah. Well, it's commonly known, isn't it, in psychology and philosophy, that there is order, and out of order comes disorder, and then around it goes again. So you could argue that actually, with all well-intended developments with technology, there's always the ability for it to go rogue, and in actual fact there's been proven cases already in the world where AI has been developed and let to go and run its course, and then has started to do
they've had to literally kill some, haven't they? Some AIs already. Turn them off. I say kill. I mean, yeah, but I mean, that's scary. Yeah, I read about those. Facebook had a couple, didn't they? A couple of bots that started talking to each other in code, and they were just a little bit scared, so they turned it off.
Well, this is it, and it just goes to show you that actually, beneath the intention of that technology, it has the ability to, engineer itself, I guess.
And here's an interesting one. A lot of people will say I'm mad, especially computer scientists and scientists right now. But given the number of computers connected together on the internet, and the power of the number of transistors and connections in all those computers, and all the GPUs and CPUs and everything, all on some level connected together within the internet. If there is or was, to take the entire thing, enough processing power that it is already, I say processing power, enough entropic kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to talk, I know what I'm trying to talk about, I don't quite know how to explain it. Imagine this, so if that is powerful enough to be a brain like ours, which I don't know, I don't know who's calculating this, I don't know how to calculate it, but could it, that's already the ghost in the machine is like a soul in the internet that can adjust stuff. Now people are going to go, you're insane, that's bollocks, especially scientists, and I might be, I wouldn't say I'm insane, I'd say I could definitely be wrong. I was wondering in 2001 if the internet was already the internet itself was already conscious. I was also quite unwell, in inverted commas, but don't always say to unwell people that they're definitely mad,
Absolutely. Now, actually, that leads me on to my next question and thought process, speaking specifically about the mind and the thought process we have. It's a very psychologically twisting book, and also along with that there's psychotropics and other things relating to mind-bending substances that can give you an altered experience of life. So with that in mind, looking at the psychology of us as humans, and then obviously the perceived psychology of an AI, what's the connection, do you feel, beneath or between the psychotropics and substances that we can take us to an altered state, and the connection with how an AI might well connect with that?
Perfect. In my book, they do something which sounds radical and is, as a general current way people do AI, which is there's a lot of easier ways to do AI when you've got a specific task than to simulate neurotransmitters and parts of the brain. Given that, there is one giant experiment which the EU gave $1 billion to, I think this was 15 years ago, where they were specifically saying, we're going to simulate a rat brain. So, and I believe with neurochemicals, simulated within it. I don't know where that research has gone. It's all gone very quiet, which is slightly spooky. To be honest, I haven't actually searched into it, but I haven't heard anything about it, which you think you might have. I guess maybe they're still ongoing. They haven't discovered much yet they want to write about. They're simulating a rat brain. I don't think it's definitely not necessary in the long term to simulate stuff like that to create a mind. Would it be easier? In my book, I guess the idea is that is easier than to just write, because I mean it's incredibly hard to write consciousness, I believe, with zeros and ones. Some people believe it's impossible, like sentience can't be written with zeros and ones. And then there'd be the question, even if you did simulate with neurochemicals and bits of the brain, and then it seemed sentient, or it seemed to have consciousness, would it be philosophically real, or would it be not? So I don't know if I answered your question, but that was what I have to say on the subject.
No, it's an interesting take on how the systems may well work, and obviously with the proof or the sort of evidence that's out there at the moment with the preliminary work that's gone on, it's quite interesting to see how there's been major U-turns or actual, awakenings of what can and can't be done. Now, one thing I have noticed within psychology and in obviously psychiatric side of things with medications is the recent discovery that the serotonin inhibitors or uptake inhibitors that were traditionally used for depression is actually now being reversed in the sense, the scientific thoughts of the current era are actually saying, well, actually, is that directly responsible for your depression and etc., and looking at the synapses of the brain and how the chemicals do what they do, and actually some of the thinking is that when we feel something in our body, we then turn that into an emotion, but our brain is doing that. But is that feeling we're getting connected with the right emotion? And that's where distortions come along. So what I was sort of leading towards with the book is the sense that, is it highly likely that if you start to mix a human with technology, that we already have problems with decoding what the right responses are to certain circumstances if we're not well? So then you have a computer involved. What are the distortions that could occur? I'm interested in.
Oh yeah, I mean, can you have a mentally ill computer? Is that what you're asking me?
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
If it's clever enough to feel, or at least simulate feelings, 100%. Why couldn't it be? Like, I would say 100% yes. I'm not. We'd have to see, I guess. This is all interesting stuff. There's already there's been computers since for over 20 years that can fool people behind a screen into thinking they are humans. That was the original Turing test. I don't think people would question, are those computers conscious? I wouldn't think they were conscious and sentient and have souls, because they were literally just very clever. I mean, I go into all this in the book. Were you asking if computers can be mentally ill? Yeah. yeah, sort of. What is mental illness? I could ask you back.
Yeah, again, that's a human construct, isn't it? So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I think I'm getting at, and I don't want to give away any of the key things of the book, because this obviously forms a big part of how the book turns out.
We don't want to give away too much, and I've given away a little already, haven't I?
Yeah, but I think what I'm getting at is this whole thing about how computers and their input into humanity can either have very positive effects or very distorted outcomes, and it's like looking at what they are and how they may come about, and actually, is it through a basic bit of programming that's been put into this AI that that's come from a human ultimately, that has caused the rogue behaviour? Yeah.
Do you mean in reality or the book?
Well, I guess because of where we're headed, it's highly likely that this will be reality. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, well, I would say it depends, because I imagine those Facebook ones that have started having bots that started having chat with themselves in a language they couldn't understand. As far as I'm aware, that is like the book stuff like that is like nowadays 99.9% of AI is neural networks, and you just set it up, and you make it very you just make it very good. You set it up, and so for example, you have an input of a visual input, like a grid of like for an image, so, and then you have a load of neural networks attached to that, and then you tell it, and you just basically train it. You show it millions of pictures of cats, and you show it billions, maybe more pictures of cats, and billions of pictures of stuff that isn't cats, and you say to it, every time you show it a cat, you go, this is a cat, and then every time you show it something that's not a cat, you go, this is not a cat, and then after a while, it learns, and it's all set up, and you can reverse it, and then it will then go, it'll be better, really amazingly good at telling what is a cat or not. And I actually, to cut a long story short, well, no, I don't know why I'm saying that right now. I have a son now. He's a few months old, and I've thought about this before I had a son, and it's obvious, I suppose, in some ways. But I believe he's got a soul. But I personally believe that any sentient computer would have a soul too, in inverted commas. Like, a lot of people disagree with me, but who knows? But in its essence, what he and all of us are little learning machines. Like we are born, and we're just really super advanced neural networks, and we don't look at cats and people go, that's a cat, that's not a cat. But we spend our first 4 months of our life just waving our hands about and going, oh, if I hit myself in the head, oh, that's not the best plan. Oh, I better not poke myself in the eye. Oh, if I move my hand over here and wave it like that and then do this, I pick something up and I can do things with that. And watching him, he does, it's just learning over and over again. AIs are the same, mostly. Whether if you simulated chemicals and, simulated bits of the brain and stuff, you're still pretty much always going to want senses, like eyes, ears, or at least things where you feed in language or concepts and stuff like that. I think, and nowadays all AI is neural networks, because at first they try to sort of set up complex systems of like, language systems by making rules, but it's almost impossible to it's just an endless task to write the rules of how a person let alone something smarter than a person.
So just talking more about the sort of mechanicals of what to expect. So the book is available as an ebook, a softback, a hardback, and also an audio book. So with that in mind, what can people expect from the audio book? Because obviously from obviously working alongside you with it, it's not just a standard audio book, is it? So can you give us a bit of a background of what people can expect when they listen to the book?
Yeah, I mean, basically I would say if you like reading books or Kindle, PDFs, get that, read it. But I would say if you do want to and have the time and want to hear it in the audible form, we put a lot of work into it, yeah. And it's like a mini film. Like, it's more like a little mini film than any of the audiobooks that I've listened to. Like, the ones that I've checked out are like have a tiny bit of music, or they have like the ocean in the background for like 5 minutes and then they change. And then we went full on. We put FX on characters' voices. We put like the sound of cars going past, bleeps and bloops, all sorts of music, mad stuff happening. It's like, the idea was, because I've always wanted to make films. I've made some short films. I mean, they're not films, but I've made sort of things. I love to make films in real life, but to make this one as good as this book is good, it's not something you can do by yourself or even with a small team of friends in any reasonable time. You'd need a lot of money, and I don't think any Hollywood studio yet are going to throw enough money at me. Although maybe after that, you never know. But the point I thought, I want to make a film, and this is the next best thing. This I could do. I have audio talent. I make I make music, which we put a lot in, didn't we? And you recorded and engineered a lot of stuff with me. And but yeah, it's so many sound effects. I mean, do you know what actually boggled my mind is, this was a mission, wasn't it? But I think to myself, imagine, because it's hard to do sound effects and music, but I thought to myself, imagine if I had to do this 3 hour and 40 minutes, which is roughly how long it is, or 50 minutes of visual, like images as well. I would love to do it, storyboard it, describe it, get people, but it would just take it to the next level. This is why if you make a film, you have like teams of up to hundreds and thousands of people in it, in some movies, of course. But yeah, it's there's a lot of exciting, immersive stuff, and apparently, according to you, and I feel myself, and a lot of people have said, I have a good voice to read it in. So yeah,
I think that's always important when you're going to spend, invest your time in a book that you're going to listen to, or even a film you're going to watch. You want to be able to immerse yourself in it, and I think that this whole approach is quite new for Audible. I have, like yourself, gone around, had a listen. I use Audible mostly because I struggle to read, so I use it as a tool to take in information. And yeah, it's very rare you come across a book that has an animated soundtrack, and from a listening point of view, it's great because it is actually like you're listening to a film. But it's it gives the listener something else to go with. My last question, or not question, it's more sort of talking about going on from the audio but to the soundtrack. So there's an official soundtrack that is available globally now and in Spotify and all streaming stores. How did you decide on what music to use, and do you feel that being a producer, other people might not know that 5D Nick is your author name, but you're also produced under Deep and Beeper, which you can find a lot of your catalogue on deepandbeeper.co.uk. And
that's Deep N Beeper, just to point out, so it's not just if anyone's typing it in and going, I can't find it.
Okay, but just more detail about the music. Your inspiration for a lot of your electronic productions are futuristic anyway, so it almost sat very comfortably with the book, in terms of the instrumental music that was used.
Well, people have always said to me that when I play them my music, it sounds like it'd be great for films. People have said that slightly less and less later, but to cut a long story short, yeah, it's definitely quite weird and esoteric and usually unique and sets a mood, whatever that mood is, I would say. I would also say that, yeah, at first when I started doing the sort of tests of this book, didn't I just whacked in other people's music, and then you were like, well, unfortunately, Nick, we can't just use other people's music for free, which, obviously copyright issues, and you were like, yeah, we should use yours, and I am just lucky that I had just a massive back catalogue of music to use, because say I'd had a tenth of the music, say I'd made 2 albums of like one of drum and bass and one of like even ambient music, I wouldn't probably have had enough to go to and moods and things to find, because I wanted to have a lot of music in it, and we what is it, 20 tracks or 20 tracks are used. They're not all full tracks, obviously. Some are just short like chunks of a bit of a mood setter. But yeah, I'd say as someone who had to choose the music and wanted a lot of stuff to happen, and I was very lucky to have the fact that I've made ridiculous amount of music already in that sort of vein, because there was a lot of choice, and every time I thought, scratch my head, which one should I use now, I'd find something and be like, that's great, it sounds like it works. Do you know what I mean? So I will let people be the judge when they listen, obviously, but I think yeah, I mean, like I say, my inspiration, because I've always been a bit sort of sciencey and futuristic with music as well as, other stuff. So it does sound like quite sci-fi.
Yeah, and that's the thing, really, to sort of summarise of the Endless Maze and the whole project, is it's the full package in the sense of it's a book. You can get yourself into the storyline and enjoy it, but you've also got the background effects, the music, and also you've got the ability to immerse yourself in the books themselves as softbacks, hardbacks, or ebooks, and then you've got the audio book. So really and truly, it's a great debut for you as an author, and hopefully it will set the tone for future. We've already seen a couple of good reviews that have come through before we've officially launched this project, so it's looking good. What is coming up in the future, just to sort of look at the post the Endless Maze? What is your next output going to be?
Well, there was a point where I was like, I'm not doing that again. And then I really thought harder about. I didn't even have to think harder about it. I just love. Currently, like I'm 2/3, 3/4 of the way into my second book, which is called The Sacred Symmetry, which is completely different. Also really like sort of cosmological and very, very psychological. Much more different. It's about an assassin at the end of time. So I guess he starts where this book finished, the first book finishes, and they're not linked. Then they're nothing. They're completely different universes. They're not anything to do with each other. What I mean is he starts at the end of time, deep time. To cut a long story short, he has to do all this weird stuff and send information into the future, which loops around to come back to. It's very weird. It's much more Christopher Nolan. I actually had to have a big load of I've got a load of planning, like it's all like spider diagram type thing, just to get my head around what the hell was going on. But he's an assassin by trade. He doesn't do much assassinations at the end because he lives on a big space station with like these sort of very scientific, futuristic guardians of reality, sort of, and like these like computer race of computer sort of people. But what I was trying to say, I mean, I'm not giving it away here, but it started differently. It's darker. Like I was advised by someone that it's a good way to get out some dark stuff and explore things in writing. So I started with some moody writing straight away. The baddie is moody. Like he's like, not taking my worst stuff. He's way more psycho than I would ever even think about. Let alone normally. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's the book. It's there's a lot going on. It's across a lot more people. It's got more emotional, even more. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm very excited to write it. It's already longer, even though it's about 2/3 of the way through than the last one. The most important thing is I'm loving writing it, and I think we're gonna make it into another audiobook.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of the podcast. It was a nice short introduction to the book and you as the author. Is there anything you would like to tell the listeners, and any web addresses or anything you want us to have a look at?
Well, I mean, I suppose go to linktr.ee, which is I now give out that as a good link because it will have everything at some point, won't it? I mean, we've said deepandbeeper.co.uk. That's music, podcasts about music, etc. But also, if you're interested, the Audible link is linktr.ee/5dnick, the number 5, a D, and then Nick. And also there's NFTs that I've done. If anyone is into Tezos and things, because it's like, there's a lot. To cut a long story short, I'm a polymath. I've done all sorts of stuff. Check it out. The point of this book, if you've listened and you've tuned in and you've been like, psychological computer, neurochemicals with like mad stuff going on in exciting audiobook form, then check the book out. I want to say thanks to everyone who's helped me to write it and produce it, Nat, especially my wife. We got the thank you list on the book, and it's just, been a journey. It took a long time, and I'm happy that I got it done.
Yeah, I suppose the obvious thing to tell people is if they just go to Amazon in any country they're in and put in The Endless Maze, you'll then be presented with all of the options. So whatever kind of way you immerse yourself into books, you will have those options available for you by searching The Endless Maze. So thank you very much for being with us today, Nick, and we look forward to the future of your writing.
Yeah, I do too, because that's the one thing I want to say at this point. I realise writing for me, it's a discovery of, I literally find the story out as I'm going along. Like, I haven't got it all in my head. I didn't know it before I decided to write the thing. It's like I discovering it too, the story, and that's my favourite thing about writing, if I'm honest. When I get up in the morning, I'm like, I'm going to sit down and write something. And then I've like found it's like another episode of like a TV show. It's just popped into existence from somewhere.
Okay, so unless there's anything else, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye for me.
Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.